You're pausing. This in order.
First, the order of business would be to have the pledge of allegiance or President Kuzinski will lead it. He's not here all the time. Pledge allegiance to the flag
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. And then, Mr. Vice Chair, we'll be happy. I'll read the notice of meeting myself. Notice is hereby given that a public meeting of the Stratford County Legislative Delegation Executive Committee is scheduled to be held Friday, March 1st, 2024 at 9 a.m. With snow date of Friday, March 8th, 2024, 9 a.m. This meeting will require a physical quorum, but will provide remote access to the public and will be held as noted above in the Cafe Conference Room, lower level of the way on the Grimes Justice and Administration Building, 259 County Farm, over, New Hampshire, to conduct the following business. And review Commissioner's proposed 2024 budget, your delegation subcommittee reports and recommendations from subcommittee chairman. Approved subcommittee reports and recommendations to be presented to the full delegation. Approved executive committee meeting on November 1st, 15th, 2023. Discuss and vote on the candidates to serve out the remainder of Stratford County Sheriff's term. Discuss and vote on the 2025-26 elected official salaries. Any other business which may legally come before the executive committee. That's the notice of meeting. And I will call the roll as well. Bailey. President. Bixby. Here. Burnham.
Here.
Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Harrington is excused. Oregon.
Here.
Howard. Here. Levesque is not here yet. Newton. Here. Petrie. Here. Atenza.
Here.
Rich is excused. Schmidt here. Southworth.
Here.
Wall. We're here. Okay, very good. What?
When you, that she got me excused, when you didn't call my name.
Yeah.
I did, Wall. And I didn't expect you to speak up since you're having a hard time speaking. I know you're here. Okay. Very good. Not very good, but I'm an amateur clerk. Okay. So I'm going to change the order of the subcommittee presentations because Representative Wall has to leave to get to her therapy session. So Representative Wall, you're recognized. Kelly, is this picking this up?
You have to be a little bit closer to it. Yeah, but it is, yeah. They're all live.
Yeah, very good. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me on fine to speak up. Thank you. The Riverside Rest Home Committee met. We did have a quorum. It was an excellent meeting. We had the pleasure of meeting our new director of the rest home, Deb Brown, was over there. And other staff members, including the gentleman who's in charge of maintenance of the rest home. There are very few transfers in our budget for the Riverside Rest Home. It's a very conservative budget. And despite problems with the fact that the building is very old and all, with the recent inspection, there was only one deficiency. It was very minor. In one room, it had to do with a 10-gallon hand sanitizer container. That is the only deficiency that we had at the rest home. And consistently over the years, Riverside has gone through these unannounced inspections by the federal government for Medicaid with flying colors. We have to commend the staff, the director, Ray Bauer, and the gentleman who's in charge of maintenance. We did have just a slight increase in the budget in terms of the director because we have a new director and they had to meet that requirement. We also had minor changes, very, very minor, to meet Medicaid requirements, federal requirements. One of the big concerns has been that the cost of food has really skyrocketed. But once again, the dietary department and Ray Bauer are working together to make sure that the varying diets that everybody pretty much has at the rest home are met. There are a lot of people with very, how can I say, medically necessary diets. Not just people who are lactose intolerant or people who have diabetes, but other concerns. So there's not only an individual diet set up for everybody over there, but there's also a time for an individual therapies, whether they need an occupational therapy, physical therapy, whatever. There's a patient plan for every single resident at the rest home. And that's about all I can say this morning, except for the fact that the committee voted unanimously to support the commissioners and their recommendation for the budget. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Are there questions? Questions? Hearing none.
Peter, want to move the mic back?
Thank you. Well, thank you, Chairman Wall. There are no questions. We'll proceed to the report of the Criminal Justice Subcommittee. Chairman Vincent is not here. The power still upstairs. Okay, well, I'm gonna defer to item 7, which is the General Government Subcommittee. As Representative Newton informed us all in his communication of roughly a week ago, there was no quorum present. And therefore the actions of the subcommittee are a nullity because it can't have actions with no quorum present. And we will deal with that subsequently. I'll announce it when I get to that point. So we'll proceed to item 8, Revenues and Capital Expenditure Subcommittee. That would be Representative Southworth.
So all of you got the report.
You want to grab a mic?
Oh, sure. So all of you got the report. There are a lot of good details in the report, some things that we hadn't gone over before in past meetings. So I encourage people to read into some of the details. Highlights that I will share. We have a new maintenance director, Doug Kane. So we got to meet him and get some background information from him. Most of the items in the capital list are replacement items that are certainly needed. And again, we got a big packet of those. One thing that's new this year, to me anyway, is you see 2 large sections on offsetting revenue, both on the revenue section and on the nursing home section. And the offsetting revenue is where they're putting the new opioid money. And it was significant this year because there was one large settlement that's being paid out in 1 year. Most of the opioid money has been paid out in 15 years or 18 years. So because we had that large amount come in, you know, they use it in the budget, but where it shows up is an offsetting. So you'll see again, in the revenue column and the Riverside Rest Home column, there's this large amount of money that's offsetting. And that again, mainly is from the opioid settlement. I'd also say, and some of you may know from the calendar, they're going to expand and let's see, I'll talk to Mr. Bauer about that another time, but they're going to expand what the opioid settlement can be used for. And so for future grants, it'll give the county more choices about how the money can be used. Other things for highlights, you saw a significant increase in revenue from Riverside Rest Home, which goes back to us increasing the Medicaid payments. And we have a lot of those patients at Riverside Rest Home, so it actually was a $5 million increase. And that's really because of, you know, what we did with the budget in the legislature, There was one, and again, you should have it in your packet, change in the revenue page. I'll hold up mine. But it looks like this, you know, there was a clerical error, a 0 was added in one account, but when they went to revise it, some other accounts had changed slightly too, so it really worked out about the same. But this sheet with the yellow just shows, you know, what happened with those changes.
That's the corrected version.
Yes.
This one right here.
Right.
And let's see, so this is the end of the ARPA funds, they have to be spent by December. And these funds are not in this budget, they go through the commissioners. Just like in the state, the ARPA funds went through the governor. So, you know, it is not mixed into the regular budget. Oh, and then, you know, the other change that we've heard about before, is the real estate, tax is going down, as far as we know, partly because of availability, prices are going up, but there just aren't as many homes available for sale. And I'm on the Ways and Means Committee in Concord, and we've seen this as well. But it is certainly true in Stratford County. And so, yes, she adjusted it down by about 200,000.
Yeah, and as I said in the committee, I'm still very concerned
Yes.
that that's not enough
Right.
at this stage based upon the numbers that's there, so.
And that's in the minutes.
Yeah.
So we are thinking ahead about that, so it doesn't surprise us.
Right, it's, you know, not looking great.
And hopefully something else will go up more than we thought.
Let's hope so, yeah.
And let me see. We unanimously approved the revenues section of our task. And then the capital improvements, we did have like 100-page sheet of all the different things that were needed. Again, mostly replacements. I started going through it. Again, it's like this thick. And I felt it wasn't my area of expertise, that, you know, we have all these departments and so on working on it. And I think actually Representative Newton had a couple of questions that make sense to me to find out about. So I don't know if you want to add on any of that now. Yes.
Yeah, I did have a couple questions. One of them was the line item for 3 new trucks at 180,000. I like that they're going through the state, so they'll get the best price for them. I just question if it's a good idea to buy 3 at once, because they're all 3 are gonna wear out at the same time pretty much. But if we get 1 a year for the next 3 years, that might be make a little more sense. And the other item was the loader that they wanted. They wanted a payloader to move the planters out front and things that they have to get in to do the windows. There's a problem with the windows. One thing we observed was the jail is 20 years old, so things are starting to happen with that. The courthouse is getting some age. There's some things I question, like replacing all the seals in the windows, doing that in-house. I think that should be farmed out to a certified glass company that really knows what they're doing. Might be more expensive, but it might be worth it in the long run. I don't know what the comprehensive insurance will think about people being up in the air, replacing those windows. But the loader, basically, they want it to move the planters and plowing in the winter, so there's a lot of time when it won't be used. And I would offer that if they get some of the loaders with 1.5 yard buckets, 3 yard buckets, well, I understand the sanders are 3 yards. So if you have the same size bucket, sand's gonna go everywhere. Now, the state uses a backhoe to load dump trucks because they can control where the sand goes better. And I would offer or ask the maintenance director if he might want to consider changing that plan to a loader, to a backhoe if they don't have one. I understand they have a couple tractors, but a backhoe may be more useful to the county. They can do things with it all summer long. And the cost might be a little bit less, but again, it's a smaller vehicle to get in and out of places. And out here in the front, I was looking with a big backhoe, with a big loader. If you have to get near the building, you've still got a lot of brush and stuff that isn't gonna move when you go try to get in there with a big payloader. I question if the county needs a piece of equipment that big to do what they have to do here. The other concern I had was, I reviewed a lot of the requests for, equipment and replacement of materials and parts. And very good with the pricing. It's all stuff that we need or should have. The question that I had was a lot of the bids were old, some dating back is almost a year old, and I question whether they are okay with the numbers they've got. The numbers may have gone up. Maybe they want to have a little contingency. Maybe Ray can answer that question at some point if they feel comfortable. Because again, a lot of the bids were old. And a lot of the things said numbers good for 30 days and they were 6 months old. So it gives us an idea, but I just was worried they may not. Some might come in higher because we know everything's gone up over the last year. And if I could continue on the revenue part, I had a real big concern and
If you want, I think we should address these issues that
Yeah,
you
okay.
raised. So let's go back and get into those one by one. So is that the order you want to take them up in?
yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I can talk about the pricing. When we call for pricing, we let people know that it's a courtesy to give us that pricing. Understanding that we're gonna go out to bid for these items. I mean, we can't just hand this to anybody. It's too much county funds. Now, when we can get something through the state bid, we obviously do that because, you know, the state bids with a lot more power than we have. You know, if we're getting 2 or 3 trucks and they're getting 300 trucks, you know, because anybody can jump onto the state bid. You know, we feel pretty good about utilizing the state bid, although frequently we still will call around to the local dealer just to see if they want to match it. You know, just as a courtesy, because we'd rather hand it to somebody, you know, in Stratford County if we can. And not all of the state bids not all of the state bidders are successful bidders from Stratford County. So, and so we frequently will just give a call to, if the state bid is a Chevy, we'll call the local Chevy dealer. You know, just to see, sometimes they want to match it because they don't want somebody else's emblem on the back of a cruiser from the sheriff's department. They want their own emblem on there. And it's an advertising thing for them. And so we offer them that opportunity. The other things, because we'll go out to bid for
Hold up
everything.
for just a second. So let's say if we have any questions about what you've just talked about.
And then I'm gonna ask Doug to talk about the other things that Representative Newton brought up.
Okay, so are there any questions about what Ray has just talked about? Representative Bixby?
Yeah, so I think that Representative Newton made a good point in terms of, do we want to get 3 trucks at once versus do we want to stagger them so that the replacement costs and maintenance costs will be spread out?
I think 2 things, and I think Doug can answer this better than I, but they won't be used equally. I mean, so I don't think we'll ever be in a position where we need to replace 3 again at one time. You know, I think they would be spread out. So my speculation, well, it's more than speculation, the way we would plan for it was now in future replacement. Remember, these vehicles are 10 years old, so, you know, we can certainly in the future spread it out so it won't hit 3 at one time. We're just in a situation now that we hope doesn't repeat itself. And if you look at history, this is a very unique situation. We don't, other than deputies cruisers, you know, which tend to be used about equally. We don't get, more than one vehicle at a time. This is just a unique situation. But we would spread it out so it won't happen again.
Okay, follow up.
So essentially, we have, 3 trucks now that are past their useful life.
Yeah, and Doug can better address that than I.
Morning. I want to thank Representative Newton for reaching out to me this week. We had a good conversation about.
Hey, just hang on a second.
probably need
So
to
are we picking this up at all with a microphone? Kelly,
Not Doug.
let's get you a microphone so you can be recorded.
Stand over, just stand over to the out
Yeah.
over here.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Douglas Kane. I'm the maintenance director for Stratford County. Again, I
Have
want
a seat so you can speak in the mic.
3 times the charm.
I also am an amateur clerk.
Believe me, this is not a professional presentation.
Okay, how we doing? Good, okay. Great. Good morning, everybody. My name is Douglas Kane. I'm the maintenance director for Stratford County. Again, I'd like to thank Representative Newton for reaching out to me earlier this week. We had a great discussion about some of the items. He had wonderful questions. Shows he's interested and interesting about what we're spending money on here. To address the 3 truck situation, what we're replacing right now is a 2005 Chevrolet, a 2007 Chevrolet, and I believe a 2009 Chevrolet. The 2009 is beyond its mechanical limits. It needs a transmission. The engine is tired. It needs tires. It has rust issues on the bed. The 2005 and 2007 are severely rusted. We refer to them as yard trucks because they will not take a sticker. The frames are rusted completely through. What I have done as maintenance director when I first started is we purchased some oil undercoating products and immediately undercoated all the vehicles that we have right now. We have a 2018, a 2019, and I believe a 2020 Ford F-250. I have 13 guys utilizing 3 trucks right now, which doesn't work for us. We need to be able to respond quickly to things around here. Weather events, erosion, the buildings, the infrastructure inside the building really needs some attention. And we're in a position now, like Ray said, where it just happens to be the 3 vehicles all dying at once. Representative Newton, if you would be kind to take that packet from my seat and hand it to Representative Newton. I brought some information on the site. Yes, please. On the size of the snow bully that we have and its recommended equipment to operate it. And also our John Deere is in there as well. And you can see the size comparison between the snow bully that we have and the John Deere that we have and what they recommend for a loader to push that. I like your idea of a backhoe. It would obviously give us more flexibility on some of the projects that we need. If they make one powerful enough to move that snow bully, I would be receptive to that. Absolutely. You'll see other items in there for the jail. Those are very, very, very important items in the jail. That's HVAC. And it's not a stretch of the imagination for folks to realize what would happen with, so many ICE inmates and we lose air conditioning in August. That's a potential riot. We also have, I believe, Supervisor Brackett has, our Superintendent Brackett has contracts with ICE and with Department of Justice that need to be maintained. And they have standards when they come in and inspect the facility. And if we have old squeaking HVAC that goes down 2 or 3 times a year, it gets expensive. Train's been a great vendor. They're responsive and they understand the needs. The package that you have in front of you where it says IntelliPack, that is an alternative to replacing the entire HVAC units on top of the jail, which are about $375,000 a piece. They're coming in at, I believe, $140 to $150, and it's basically changing the guts, leaving the chassis, and then it comes with a 5-year warranty. All integrated, efficient on electricity, and really it's the way to go, because we're coming up on 20 years old on a lot of that equipment sitting over at the jail.
You good?
I'm good.
Representative Newton.
Yeah, I had a question, when in our discussion, you mentioned that you're working on a 5 or 6 year plan
It's
for the county to try to stay up on maintenance and what have you.
it's something we're gonna put together this year. There's a lot to look at. You know,
So
there's
that
a
will
lot.
help, Ray, that's probably part of your idea too.
We just finished our 6-year plan. Representative Newton finished in 2024. I obviously didn't embark on a new one because we were, you know, a new nursing home was in consideration, which would have taken up a lot of those, you know, items. So now that that's not currently in consideration, we're gonna take a step backwards and starting in April, we'll do a 6-year capital plan. The theory of why we picked 6 years, 6 to 7 years, is because we bonded, the last one was around $6 million. And as we've paid off that bond, it would be time then to add the bond for the next multiple year capital plan. So we're not, you know, we're paying off a bond and then adding a bond for capital. That seemed to be that way we don't have a bump in long-term payment. We're picking it up as we're dropping it off. And that's the plan to start in April for a multi-year plan. Yeah, we have, so what we'll do is meet all the elected officials and department heads will meet in April. I'll give them a presentation about what's expected for them to produce as backup and as documentation for a multi-year capital plan. And then I'll ask them to prioritize that over their 6-year period. So they have to kind of look at the crystal ball and look at, as an example, dietary equipment. Some of our dietary equipment is, 40, 50 years old. So, you know, some of the ovens and stuff, while they're still operating, the likelihood of them operating for 6 more years is pretty slim. But that's how we go about doing our multi-year capital plan. And that'll start in April as soon as this budget's settled.
Yeah, further questions, follow?
Yeah, I'm working with Public Works and Highways and we're working on the 10-year plan. I asked them a question that I will infer to you. I asked them, the DOT, I said, is a 10-year plan a 10-year plan or is it a 20-year plan? And their response was, it used to be, because when you want to tell your constituents, if it's on the 10-year plan, it's going to get done in 10 years. But sometimes it's a wish list and not realistic. So one of the governors decided the 10-year plan, they had to show the funding for it and how to pay for it. And I would offer that it's a good thing to follow. If you have a 6-year plan, well, how are we going to pay for this in the 6 years? Because the state is starting to do that.
That's what we did with our last plan.
Yeah, and that worked
just
well?
expired, and that worked well.
Good.
And that's what we certainly intend on doing with our next 6-year plan. And I
Well,
say 6 years, I mean, if I have people that have vision to go 7 years, you know, that would be great. It just starts getting hard when you're pushing 7 years out. You know, it gets a little more difficult. So my experience has been 6-year plans have worked well for us here in Stratford County. The delegation has been supportive in the past with a bond for, you know, that period of time. And like I said, when that bond is just about ready to be paid off, we're about ready to bond again for another plan. So we would present a 6-year plan to the delegation for the 2025 and on.
So one last question, if I could.
Please.
One of my questions earlier was, are you comfortable with the numbers that were presented for maintenance, equipment and things? Is it gonna be enough money, or do you think a 2% increase for that number would be realistic, or?
I think it'll be enough. If for some reason it isn't, we can always come back to the executive committee and look at perhaps, you know, we can't do all of this in the, you know, we won't even begin to be working on these items till, you know, the budget passes. And then, I think as we start going out to bid for these items, remembering that some items too are likely to, might come in a little bit under. So what comes in a little bit under might help us if something comes in a little bit over.
Well, we got a whole series of questions, so we're trying to take them in order. So Representative Newton, are you done?
I'm good, thank you.
Because you had a number of items that you ticked off. Have you spoken to all of those?
I'm good with what I've talked about thus far, yep.
Okay, so I believe you were next, Representative Depenza.
So my question is, in regards with the three vehicles, and I think it spoke, so you gave 2005, 2006, and 2009 or
I
something?
believe so, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so are those vehicles right now being used
Yes, they are,
Okay.
on site,
just on site?
just on site, correct. We can't leave the property with them. They don't take an inspection sticker currently.
So do you feel as if there's any opportunity to delay, like you purchase one and then in an incremental fashion? I really like that idea.
Mhm.
And in taking the best out of the three and utilizing those where you can, of course.
Sure.
I just, that's a lot of capital put out in one time. And, on the Riverside Rest Home side, I think we should be talking about, I think we should be talking about Douglas. I think we should be talking about stuff like that. I believe, and the full delegation, I think, believes that we should be investing where we can in that property as well.
Sure. To answer your question, keep in mind too, my maintenance department is 13 guys and it is the entire complex. It's the courthouse, it's Hyder, it's the daycare, it's Riverside, it's the Alms House, it's transitional housing. It's the new jail, it's the old jail. There's a lot of support needed and a lot of times it's vehicle support. It's a large complex. If we could do the stuff with segways, we would. And I'm not being glib. Just something to get the guys to where they need to go, transport the tools to move the stuff around. We've discussed gators, John Deere gators and things like that. The problem comes when we need to hook up a trailer and we need to move something around. This is what we need the vehicles for. Snow removal has been an issue as well with the timing. We've had instances where we've had major snowstorms come in at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and this place needs to be open at 8 on the dot. It has to be fully functional, it has to be totally dry, it has to be totally clear. One guy can't do that in one thing, so it's an operation, it's a real operation to get it done. I would ask for a minimum of 2 if we could, and then maybe 1 going down the road. That would put us in a good spot. There is a lot of outside work to do this year, not as much as last year, because we did a lot of it last year. But there's drainage issues. Whenever there's heavy rains, this place floods, that place floods. There's stuff that we all need to do. And I like to do the stuff in-house. We have a competent trained staff. We all have different skill levels. We have former plumbers, electricians, the painters. These guys are real good and they're real proud of the work that they do and the flooring and things. And if I can do things in-house and keep the costs down, that's what I'm gonna do. You can see on a lot of those capital items that I'm requesting, it's the item itself. It's a water pump. It's a heating unit because we're doing this stuff ourselves.
The other thing I do need to say is anything that can be attributed to Riverside is fully reimbursable. Because it's a capital item and it's reimbursable over the life of the item. And Diane can tell you, our finance director can tell you, because she actually does our Medicaid cost report. One of the reasons why our Medicaid rate, when you look at it, might tend to be lower than some of the other surrounding nursing homes is because we don't have hardly anything to capitalize anymore. The building's all depreciated, whatever we can attribute to maintenance at Riverside, say all these 3 new trucks, we will get that built back into our reimbursement rate over the life expectancy of the truck. Not all in 1 year, but over the life expectancy of the truck, because and I don't want to get into all kinds of complicated stuff regarding how our nursing home rate is determined. But a portion of that nursing home rate is capital reimbursement. It's part of everybody's rate. So you get people like Merrimack County and Belknap County and Carroll County all have higher rates than us, not because of staffing or anything else. It's all related to capital. They're depreciating a building. So if we get these 3 trucks, we'll obviously attribute them all to Riverside. And Diane will immediately begin depreciating them in this year's cost report. So we'll get all our money back. And I don't know how long are vehicles depreciated? 5 years. So it'll take 5 years to get the money back, but it does come back. Not that it's the case here, because we're not borrowing in this case, but if we were borrowing, it'd come back interest included.
So, Representative Petrie is next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things I am Division 2, which covers DOT. And what we do there is DOT list all their equipment, all their capital equipment. And we have a record, in other words, mileage, year, and we set up a replacement cost. You know, cause I mean, we do the cruisers for safety also. And maybe that's what we ought to do here, so we got an idea. Because, I mean, these are obviously old vehicles and we haven't replaced them. Also, on a second point is, in the schools, school buses are bought with ARPA money. Which if you do have some extra ARPA money, hanging around, maybe we could use some of that.
The ARPA money is committed to finishing the roof project. As you know, that project unfortunately goes slow because they can only work on it on the weekends. Because the noise they make is disruptive to the operation of the court.
Right.
Especially where most of it's done on the roof.
Right.
You know, and the court's right below.
Right below.
You know, we can't hear it down here, so they work primarily on Saturday and Sunday. They will finish it this year, because as you know, ARPA needs to be spent or at least committed by the year end. So, you know, we're safe if it goes further than the end, but all the ARPA money we have left is committed for that purpose.
You're good, Representative Petrie?
Thank you.
Yeah, Representative Bixby.
But on the second part, when you see our multiple year capital plan, we'll have all that done out for you. That's part of the form that needs to be filled out when you know, when the items are submitted for multiple year capital plan. It'll have complete descriptions of the item it's seeking to replace.
Yeah, we should have that now, though.
I hear what you're saying, and in a normal year, we would have.
Representative Bixby.
Yeah, so are the capital expenses primarily paid through bonding, or are they, or is that money that comes out of the taxes?
Fund balance,
Unassigned fund balance.
Okay.
unassigned fund balance.
Okay. So that would be some combination, so that would essentially be money that has come in through revenues that has not been otherwise.
Revenues or reduced expenses.
Okay,
Okay.
and just in terms of the life expectancy of the vehicles, and it sounds like if we have vehicles that are 2005, 2007, 2009, those were essentially their amortization was long past.
It's long past.
And so it's just sort of a coincidence that that 4-year stretch or 5-year stretch may happen to like fail this year, all in this year.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, if we have a vehicle, I know it's done being depreciated after 5 years. But I mean, if the vehicle's gonna last more than that, we're not simply gonna replace it in 5 years.
Right, but I'm just pointing out that in terms of, it's less of an issue saying getting 3 trucks at once. If we can do that, if getting 3 trucks at once is going to give us a lower price on the trucks, that probably makes sense, because they're not gonna all fail at the same time. We're gonna run them until they run out.
That's correct.
And it sounds like, until they run out is somewhere in the 15 to 20 year range.
That's been our history.
Okay, so you're good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over here, Representative Horgan is next, and then you're.
Not prolonging the discussion about the 3 vehicles too much, but regardless of how we schedule it tonight, personally don't see what the problem is buying 3 at once. That sounds easier and cheaper, but will you presumably be getting a fleet of vehicles of the same make or related make and a similar model, which usually this area that reduces the maintenance costs and also like just makes it easier for the staff if all the vehicles are operate similarly. So is that something you would probably do, even if we do make you like spread it out over 3 years instead of doing it all at once?
We can't be sure, in subsequent years that it would be the same vehicle, because it depends who gets the bid.
Yeah.
If you did three at once, then you know, but if you do one, it could be all different vehicles.
Representative Bernard.
Thank you. So you had mentioned that the unassigned fund balance, funds these capital expenses. Do you have any like CRFs that are set up to to plan for those events that need to, or those items that need to be paid out at a certain period of time?
No. You know, we don't, we're of size that, when the capital items will come due, like the 6-year capital plan, it'll be something, you know, far beyond what we could ever afford with the fund balance. There's, you know, the buildings, this building's 50 years old, right, 72. So it's 50 years old, you know, the age of Riverside, as being in excess, well, right around 50 years old. The jail now is 22 years old. So we're in the newer buildings, the hospice house, obviously, that we didn't build, but. So Doug has warned me, that his analysis is, it looks like the next 6-year capital plan is certainly gonna be quite large and need to be bonded. Which, you know, there's, ample opportunity to include, items for upgrades to Riverside if that's the decision of the delegation. So, you know, we'll be working on that next year, but it's gonna be bonded. We don't set aside any money, as we operate.
And I just have another comment to make.
Please.
Regarding the 3 trucks. So in my town of Milton, we purchased 7 trucks one year because there was a great deal. And such a great deal that unfortunately all engines failed because there was a defect in the engine. And as a result, we've been limping along because of course, a small town can't just go buy 7 new trucks. So you could see that this could be, 3 trucks could be quite an issue if they had a problem and they run out of their warranty, that could be an issue. So I would recommend to at least minimize 2 if you can. And then maybe reconsider another one another year. Thank you.
Representative Potenza.
Yeah, I second that idea. I like that idea of 2 new. I just didn't know if there's an opportunity. You've got these 3 old ones and it, you know, even if you were able to, not necessarily put any money into them, because it's probably not worth it. That would, you know, it doesn't make sense to do that. But you know, is there the opportunity for the 3rd one? Could it be something that is, you know, is used, you know what I mean, but newer and, you know, is that even an opportunity?
It's been my experience that, well, anybody who's bought a newer vehicle, can tell you that the build quality is not the same as older vehicles, obviously. If I could purchase those 2005 Chevys again, I would do it again.
Yeah.
They've been great trucks. The newer Chevys that we have not been great trucks. We've had nothing but problems.
I know.
We seem to do well with the Fords that we have, the F-250s. I don't have any brand loyalty. I'm loyal to the budget that you guys agree and that you guys pass, and we're gonna use state bidding to find the trucks, and whoever's the cheapest and whoever can provide me with a 3/4 ton pickup with a plow package, with a bed liner and with a tow package, that's what I need.
Okay. And obviously now more so than 15 or 20 years ago, we look at undercoating everything.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we look at
preservation, that's my.
For preservation, we look at undercoating everything.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's $100 that'll save us 60.
I have a 3/4 ton truck with a plow that I loan the county when they need it. You know, when these other trucks fail. And one of the things I did when I bought it 3 or 4 years ago was to make sure I had it undercoated. And that's beside, I mean, the dealer says, oh, it's undercoated. No, I take it down to Line-X, right? Line-X, and they're the ones that do that. It's not expensive. You know, it's $400 or $500 and it could get you several more years because the body runs out before the drivetrain dies, has been our experience, and certainly my experience, and I don't profess to have the type of operation that County has, but what, you know, my experience is that it tends to last longer if you undergo it.
So are there further questions? Representative Newton?
Just a comment, having a background in automobiles, and vehicles. One of the things we have to consider is county vehicles don't put a lot of miles on them. But the frames are just an issue on new vehicles, they just don't last. That's a safety issue, you can't like Doug said, you can't hook a trailer to it because the back of the frame's rusted off and the front of the frame. So to do the preventive maintenance like that would certainly help. And if you're doing a little cleaning once in a while on them, that would help. But a lot of times they're using them in the worst weather, they're out there plowing and you're sanding and all things, so that collects on them, but I can speak from experience that the frames just don't last like they used to. But their motors hold up because there's no mileage on them.
And but the bed liners, I mean, the Linex, I don't know, I've had good luck. I promised my wife when I bought this last truck, it'd be my last truck. And so, and one of the reasons I could make her that guarantee is because, you know, I had the Linex done, and it's so far, I mean, it's only a few years old, but so far, everything's gone really well.
Okay, so are
And it's
there
not that expensive.
further questions or comments?
I just have a follow-up.
Go ahead, Representative Southwood.
As the subcommittee chair, you know, we've heard several ideas. I think my thought would be that we trust the people that are working on it, that are looking at the vehicles and so on. If as they get into it deeper, they feel it's better to get 2 1 year, 1 the next, that's fine with me. But also if they find, because prices are going up, it's better to just get the 3, maintain them, coat them and so on. I kind of, at least my preference would be to trust them as they look into it, realizing they've heard our ideas.
Thank you, everyone. There are further comments or questions?
Just
Representative,
if I may, get to the other thing of the revenue line item, I did have a concern as a truth seeker. In the line item estimate of revenues, ARPA funds, 2023 approved, 1,580,140. Digging for information, I found out that actually 7,097,305 was transferred and spent last year. And I was told a lot of it is because it was right from the feds to the county, to the commissioners, and that was okay to do it that way. You know, we have state law that says anything over 25,000, you gotta come to us. If that's the case, if you could put that somewhere where we could see it, so we'd know, because that bugged me to see 1.5 million and find out that we spent 7 million. Moved over 7 million around last year. That's a pretty substantial change from what's in the estimate. So if there's some way to make that better, I accept your answer that you gave to the committee. If you want to say it again, that's fine. But if there's a way you could just make it a little more transparent so people can see, they would look at this, the average person, and say, geez, we only spent 1.5 million in ARPA, but you actually moved over 7 million around.
They were for projects that the executive committee was well aware of. I will admit to you that we didn't itemize it, but they were the 2 projects, that being the enhancement of the radio system. You know, the enhancement of the radio system for the towns, that was basically a $4 million project. And the other piece of it was the payment of the climate control enhancement for the courthouse. And if you remember, the history on that is that when COVID was in, the state decided to close a number of court, in fact, they closed, at the beginning, closed all their superior courthouses and then began to reopen them. We were the last to reopen. We did pass their testing. However, we were kind of on the borderline, and we knew that the roof units that we had needed to be replaced anyway. They certainly would have come up, if not this year, they would have come up in the next 6-year capital plan. So we had the opera money to do it. So rather than do it through, I understand it's all tax money. I want to be clear on that because, but it was easier for us to use the ARPA money, easier on the county taxpayer to use the ARPA money. So those were the two projects that ate up that $7 million primarily.
Good.
Well, not to argue, but a lot of it was given to the employees for certain things, so like 500,000 here, you know.
That's correct.
there too. So there was a lot for that too, but again, I'm looking for transparency and it conflicts when you see the commissioner's minutes showing much larger amount spent than what we're seeing in the line item with that. And one more thing, if I could just bring it up, Mr. Chairman, since he talked about the dispatch, Representative Harrington, I don't know if this is a proper time, he asked me to bring it up. I don't know, I didn't mention it to Joe, but the outlying areas are still having quite a problem with dispatch. And they are concerned, and he talked to the Stratford chief of police, who was still concerned that they're not getting the coverage they would like to get. Is this the best that you're gonna do, or is there something in the future?
The major's here, he could perhaps address that. I know he supervises dispatch, so.
If they're having issues,
You're not gonna be recorded, so we need to have this.
if they're having issues, please have them get a hold of Justin Bellin, he's the director. Justin Bellin, okay, he's the director for dispatch. He's keeping track of where we have dead spots or if we have live spots. We did do a study of what was covered and what wasn't. But if he's unaware of it, he can't do much to address it.
Is it possible that you get that information of Representative Harrington? Because he did ask me to bring that
We'll
up.
email him that
Because he knew he
information
couldn't be
directly.
here today.
Absolutely.
And we'll include it in the minutes, but we'll also email him directly.
Thank you.
That's what you had.
That's what my.
Very good, okay, Representative Agenda.
Just a follow-up question on that. Did we know that when we upgraded that there were still gonna be gaps?
What I can tell you exactly the answer that, and I'm just repeating the answer that Justin Bellin says. When we started this, when the use of portable radios, we had about a 37% coverage. Before we signed off and made the last payment, that same area was 97.7% coverage, which will never get any better. According to Motorola and all the experts, it'll never get any higher than that. But we did those tests in those same problem areas. And I'm not saying it solved every problem, but there's adjustments that can be made. Certainly if we know of any specific problems.
Yeah, thank you. That's good to know. I didn't know what those numbers were.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Justin was actually here during the criminal justice subcommittee and actually, so I'm just repeating his numbers. Numbers are my friend, so I happen to remember it.
That's fine.
We do have a map that breaks down the county into 2,000 nodes, essentially, half quarter-mile nodes. When you look at the coverage map prior, it's embarrassing how bad it was. It's almost all green now.
Nice.
You're not gonna have complete under every circumstance coverage. I think that's almost possible in New Hampshire
Yeah,
because of the
because the
terrain.
remote and
But we have added multiple towers. The use of portables is night and day compared to where it was.
Good.
We're still fine tuning, and that's why we're getting feedback from the agencies of how they're getting it.
Nice.
And if we can fix it, we'll bring it up as high as we can.
Further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion on this item of the report? I'll move to Representative Newton moves to approve. Yeah. Is there a second? Representative Bixby seconds. This is a money situation, so there will be a roll call. Clerk may call the roll.
Bailey,
Aye.
Bixby,
Yes.
Burnham,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Corrigan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Potenza,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Southworth,
Yeah,
unanimous.
did we do that vote on nursing? I don't remember.
Oh, no, we should have.
We haven't voted on that yet, but this is very
Money.
detailed.
Yes.
And this is money, so we're having a vote.
Thank you.
Is there? Guess there's nothing we can do. Representative Wall has had to leave. So,
Well, if you felt we needed to vote on it, we still.
no, no,
Okay.
it's okay that we had the whole roll call finished. Okay, so what is the count?
Eleven,
11? And that was unanimous, 11-0. Thank you. So that's. Okay, so now, the nursing home, we already had the, report on the nursing home from Representative Wall. And, we should vote on it before we forget what we heard. Representative Potenza.
So both myself and Representative Burnham are on that subcommittee, so if there's any questions that we could try to answer, because it was a long meeting that we like.
I attended the meeting, so you and I remember we both there and had numerous questions. So, Representative Bauer, you were there as well. Do you have anything further to add with regard to the nursing home?
I do not, but I thank the committee for being so engaged.
There were a lot of
It was
questions.
great.
Yeah.
Appreciate the questions.
So is there a motion on that?
I make a motion to approve.
Representative Southworth moves, I get a second. Representative Petrie seconds. Are there further questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. That's the Riverside. Okay, now, we'll proceed now to item 6. Report of the Criminal Justice Subcommittee. Representative, Vincent is not here. He's not a member of the Executive Committee. Mr. Bauer.
Well, all I can say is, Mr. Chairman, is, there was a detailed report done. I hope you all had a chance to take a peek at it. One of the things that I think that came out resoundingly clear is how, much the subcommittee appreciated, the work that's been done, by the sheriff's department. On 2 levels. One is an integrity level, obviously. The second level is a cooperation level throughout the county. The criminal justice system and the nursing home, at the whole county, we're one county. The $8 million in revenue proposed for the House of Correction can't happen without the cooperation of the sheriff's department. And let me just give you one quick example.
Please.
Monday. I'm sorry to think this is humorous, but as a long time ago police officer, this is probably the worst thing that could ever happen to you. Another county, not in New Hampshire, was transporting a ICE inmate. And they were stuck in traffic, bumper to bumper traffic. And some lady came and knocked on their window and said, "Hey, is that your inmate running down the road?" He was running on the road in handcuffs and shackles. He got out of the vehicle, they didn't even know. And this is, so the important thing for me to tell you is, when ICE called us with that problem, these gentlemen found a way to help ICE solve the problem. We sent a team down that wasn't scheduled to be there. Once the inmate was captured, we brought them back and we're housing them now because ICE trusts us to take good care of this inmate who's a high escape risk.
Okay.
And it's that kind of cooperation that hadn't existed in the past. And that these gentlemen were kind of, no pun intended, handcuffed, not able to give us. And so I mean, that's just an example of, and our, remember, our ICE population is now more than half our revenue, at the jail. So, a good cooperative effort like that and their desire to help us is just a good indication of moving forward in that department. And the way it really used to be, under our previous sheriff. In terms of, operational costs, revenue, has gone up. You noticed when Janet sent you guys and gave you copies of the changes that were made. I was able to increase some revenue, beyond when I was putting the budget together for presentation to the commissioners in October. Those revenues weren't obvious. They became obvious as the year ended. So I was able to go in front of the revenue committee and make those changes. You see them, you got it. They're in yellow in the document that you got. There was, Representative Harrington brought up, clearly the need for some adjustments, for wages in the county attorney's office because, and I'm using his words, we were a training ground. And we train attorneys and then they go to another county or they go to the public defender's office. Jump in anywhere where I'm wrong, Emily, and Emily submitted tons of documentation. So, there was a motion put in by the Criminal Justice Committee to give Emily $32,000 to add to her staff, to distribute amongst her staff. We made that $32,000 up and then some, in the, revenue committee, so it doesn't impact anything beyond what the commissioners proposed. In fact, the taxes will go down slightly, just a few $1,000s, so it's not anything there.
So, Representative.
So when you're talking about that, I had just read that in the minutes and I just wanted to understand. So the motion that got approved for 32,000. And then we got handed out this sheet that talks about salary increases. So the county attorney got an increase of $10,600. Does that come out of the 32,000?
No, that's next year.
Okay,
None of that is this year.
okay,
The 32,000 is this year. Any increase for any elected official is people that haven't been elected yet.
okay, perfect.
Okay. Emily, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just to talk about the increases.
I think you have to speak a little closer to the mic.
Sorry, what I had asked for was to just basically bring people that have been here for a few years up to a more sustainable level to get them to stay. And I put in my documentation a lot of evidence of other county attorneys' offices that are paying more, attorney general's office that's paying more, and public defender's office that's paying more than we currently are. It wasn't a huge increase, and I think learning everyone's name still, but Representative Harrington asked me if it would be enough. I specifically asked for what I thought would be enough to keep people here, but not too high that I didn't want to raise taxes or anything, and we were able to subsume it in the revenue stream. So I can answer any more specific questions, but they're not huge increases by any means for each of those attorneys. It's not for every attorney in the office. It's just the ones that I thought that deserved an increase. I've been here for a few years where now they could leave and be making more. I wanted to try to encourage them to stay here.
We'll be discussing the salaries for the elected officials separately under the Policy and Procedure Subcommittee meeting that we concluded this morning. So are there any other questions or comments with regard to the Criminal Justice Subcommittee action and recommendation?
Motion to approve.
It's been moved by Representative Petrie. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Representative Potenza. The further questions? since it spends money, I think we better have a roll call on this as well, so the clerk may call the roll.
Bailey,
Aye.
Bixby,
Yes.
Burnham,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Oregon,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
sorry, Newton,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Potenza,
Yes.
Mitt,
Yes.
Southworth,
Yes.
11.
Okay, that's 11 to nothing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. So, at this time, I'd like to take up the general government subcommittee report. As I noted briefly earlier, it was pointed out to us by Representative Newton that, the subcommittee had not had a quorum and therefore that their, actions could not be accepted, and were in fact null and void. So, it really was not practical or possible to have a redo of the subcommittee meeting because it couldn't be guaranteed that we would have a quorum at that meeting either. And the agencies that came before us would have to come back and do it all over again, which I felt was inappropriate. They had come and made their presentation and they had provided all their materials. So that we have that material in our hands at this time. And my proposal to the executive committee would be that because we have to approve the report of that particular subcommittee, or the actions regarding that particular subcommittee's purview, that we do that hearing, that presentation right now in front of the executive committee. So, I discussed this with Mr. Bauer, and he's prepared, to speak to the subcommittee's purview.
Mr. Chairman.
I recognize Representative.
Yeah, point of order, you know, we shouldn't take it lightly that the subcommittee, I know some of them showed up, they heard it, they went through it. All of us have been pushed a little with the subcommittees. The subcommittee I was on, we had an hour and 45 minutes. I didn't vote for the capital improvements because we got the stack that morning, that thick. And I had a chance to review it and then I was able to approve it. It's unfortunate that the general government committee met and it was a null and void meeting that they met, but it still was a null and void meeting. We don't vote on the budget till March 20th. And today's March 1st. I really would like to see the committee try to get a quorum. And then maybe they could go over with the committee what should have been done again. And we come back and go through it because unless we spend the next 2 or 2.5 hours going through it without the people here to ask the questions, I don't believe we're gonna do justice to the general government, and they're talking us $27 million as part of their budget, which is a pretty substantial amount of money. So I would object to just having us gloss over it in 15 minutes and say, well, we're good with it. Because I do know, we've heard the reports today, that the subcommittees did work hard to answer the questions that came up and to do it pretty as thorough as can be done as a subcommittee. And again, it's unfortunate that the general committee met, but they only had 3 members. And, you know, I don't think we're gonna do justice to the general government committee if we don't try to work maybe with your purview. Maybe you could say, okay, I'm gonna chair it this time, or whatever needs to be done, try to get them to meet again. Instead of just saying, no, we're gonna hear from one person for the next 15 minutes and then we're gonna vote on it because it's $27 million. It's a pretty substantial amount of money.
I recognize the subcommittee chairman first, in our discussion.
well, it's true, we didn't have a quorum. We actually had 4, not 3, although one of the 4, with women's rights abstained, and he indicated that he has questions he wanted to ask. We met from, the 4 of us there all participated very actively. We met for 3 hours from 9 to 12, and many outside agencies came in and spoke to us, so they're really totally impractical to have another meeting. The members who didn't show up, 2 of them had excuses, 4 of them didn't. So I believe this has actually happened before, that our vote is purely advisory, and I don't think there's anything controversial or excessive in it, so I don't have a problem with either myself or preferably Administrator Bowers doing the brief 15-minute summary. There were no major, I don't think there's anything particularly unusual or controversial in there. I mean, yes, we are.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. What's the point of order?
Yes.
Change your point of order, Representative Petrie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You want to grab the mic?
Oh, sorry.
I apologize if I said something inappropriate, but.
Yeah, I believe.
That on, Kelly?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I believe that, Robert's Rules of Order is what we go by. And you cannot hold any business without a quorum. Plain and simple, not, well, it's advisory and all that. You cannot do it. It's illegal. Matter of fact, if you look it up, you'll find that that's to be true. And I looked it up myself. Thank you.
I'm not questioning the fact that the action of the subcommittee are a nullity because they didn't have a quorum. They cannot take an action, so the recommendation is not, is a nullity. So that's the reason. I take Representative Newton's point seriously, but one of the problems is that you're asking that all the agencies that came before us, that they all come back and do it all over again. They've done their job, and they made their report. They've submitted themselves to the questions. They provided the material on which the report would be based, and as you know, we have a break at this particular time, and I appreciate the fact that the executive committee is effectively all here except 3 people who are either unavailable by virtue of being out of state, or 1 person is ill, I believe. So the problem is getting the subcommittee back together again for a redo, I think is of questionable workability. So I propose that we listen to the executive committee opine on my suggestion, and we will decide whether we're going to proceed or not. So the next person I'm going to recognize is the administrator.
I just simply want to say, if the wish of the executive committee is to have another meeting, I'm available day or night. And I think with an adequate amount of time, the agencies would come back. So I'm just offering myself, maybe it would be easier for this particular subcommittee if they met at night instead of, I think it was a Friday morning. Maybe it'd be easier if they met at night. If they do, we'll come in at night and do it. So whatever the executive committee wishes, know that I'm happy to comply.
Representative Potenza next.
Just in kind of understanding the procedure, so when there wasn't a quorum, and so there's 4 people, and then you said 1 abstained, why wasn't the meeting rescheduled right then and there? That's one question. My second is, if all of the agencies had come in and they, and that's all in these minutes right now, and they provided the information, some of that might not need to be duplicated again. They might not need to come in again, but don't you believe that we should still have a legal meeting?
Well, the subcommittee can only legally meet if they have a quorum. I attended the subcommittee meetings of all the other subcommittees because I was available. That morning when Representative Horgan's subcommittee met, I was in Concord for the Jelcar meeting, so I could not be here, but I'm going to hear the commentary of the executive committee, and then we'll abide by their decision, not mine. Representative Horgan.
I apologize if this is out of order, but one of the 10 members who's appointed the subcommittee is not, has for whatever reason chosen not to participate in any legislative activities in Concord or here in Stratford County, so it might be possible to remove them. That would be Representative Jeffrey Rich from the committee, and then at least we only have to get 5 out of 9 instead of 6 out of 10 to have a legal meeting. I don't know whether that's doable or not, or who would have the power to do that, but that's one practical suggestion that might simplify it in case we had to have an additional meeting between now and March 20th, which I can do if I have to. I think I did the appropriate thing by proceeding with the meeting because everybody, aside from the members who was missing, was there and present. So, I can't really control what the 4 members who took unexcused absences, they probably had their good reasons for it, including the member who I just mentioned by name, but we could probably take him off the subcommittee, and there's probably, he has, as I said, he's not shown up for any legislative activity of any type in several months, but apparently still living in his district and has not resigned, so he's still a member of the delegation, but he doesn't necessarily have to be a member of the subcommittee if and when we have to have an additional meeting of the subcommittee. Thanks.
We've made repeated attempts to contact Representative Jeffrey Rich, and I have not been successful, and nor has anyone else been successful in locating them. So that is a problem. Representative Newman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have a parliamentarian here and Representative Fitzpatrick. But I want to share with all of you, I found a great website. It's from York County Fire Department, and they listed all of Robert's Rules of Order 12th edition. And it's on PDF format, so you can all get it. And if you really care, because rules matter, and we have to do rules. And one of the things that Robert's Rules of Order referred to 1055, which said an assembly can ratify not having a quorum. We could do that by a vote. However, it said, nor can it ratify anything done in violation of procedural rules prescribed by national, state, or local law. So here's where it also applies. 91A requires a quorum to do any business that for the purpose of discussing or acting upon a matter or matters over which a public body has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power. So we've got Robert's Rules, as our parliamentarian knows, there are 4 things you can do if you don't have a quorum. And they're very clear of what you can do if you don't have a quorum, and you can probably agree with what they are. You can call a meeting and then adjourn, because you're obligated to hold a meeting. You can recess the meeting till a time certain, you can adjourn to a time certain, or you can recess and try to bring people forward so you've got a quorum to hold a meeting. But otherwise, it's null and void. And I don't think we're doing the people, if they want the money, I think they could show up to another meeting. And I think that we try to do the best we can. And I feel bad for the people that were there. I know they worked hard on it, but there wasn't a quorum. And that's the rules. You have to have a quorum. I would like to give, since we've got 19 days, I would like to somehow, if you're going to appoint subcommittee members to it, I think you could do that to replace the ones that aren't going to show up. And, maybe that's a step to try. And maybe with the help of the people that were there, they could briefly surmise to the committee what happened. But I don't think we should take it up today, because I don't think there's nobody here to testify for it in front of us.
My hand up.
I agree.
Representative Southworth.
Yeah, I think this was a unique situation because the subcommittees are advisory and they aren't even. People kind of ask for the ones they want to be on, so it's really uneven in terms of what a quorum would be for each subcommittee. My thought, with what I've heard so far is to have the subcommittee meet again, primarily with, Mr. Bauer, because they can still read this report and they can think ahead if they have questions. And my suspicion is that, Administrator Bauer could answer most of those questions. Again, you've got the 4 people that really already know this stuff, and then you add a few more. I think that would be legal. I don't think we have to have every presenter come again. I think it might be doable. I would say, though, March is very busy for all of us. But I think, again, knowing, the importance of it and the people had different reasons they couldn't come, it might not be as hard to set up as we think, but I would not make every staff member have to come again. That's just a suggestion.
I don't have a problem with staff members coming.
Yeah.
Cause I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I'm speaking on it. As an example, I would like to have Doug come, to talk about the maintenance budget as an example. So, I'm not worried about don't worry about bringing any of the county people. We're happy to come anytime, day or night. So.
That's not the issue. The question is the agencies.
Well, I mean.
Yeah, but
I have a point on that.
Representative Bixby.
So, just looking at the distribution of the items, that make up that $27.8 million. The agencies that are not part of the county make up 320,000 of that. And everything, and the presentation for everything but 1.2 or 1.3 million of what remains was done by Administrator Bauer. So I think that, if we do have a meeting, we can have a meeting that includes Administrator Bauer and, the, person in charge of maintenance and the registry, and possibly the registry of deeds. And that would really cover everything. I don't think we need to bring in Meals on Wheels, which is 42,000, Easter Seals, which is 80,000, Conservation District is 60,000, Cooperative Extension is 170,000, Coast is 72,000. I don't think that I think that what we heard from those agencies was pretty, I think that the people who were there can pretty much explain what we got from them. And then the bulk of the issue is really what was presented by Mr. Bauer, and I think that if we have a meeting that can cover it. The other thing I have is a question, which is in committees, when we have executive session, is possible to have substitutes. Is that something that can happen on a subcommittee?
Well, had we known that people would not be able to attend, certainly actions could have been taken, and Representative Jeffrey will be replaced on the subcommittee, so we're not in any way dependent on his presence, involvement. But at this point, I want to proceed one way or the other. So what is the pleasure of
Mr. Chairman, I've got a point of order.
State your point of order.
Yeah, the point of order is we keep referring to a report that is null and void. Everything done by this committee is null and void. So the report we keep referring to keep reading it is null and void.
The points he's making have nothing to do with the report.
The point I'm making is that it has everything to do with accepting anything from this committee that is null and void. And we've got rules. And the other question, we do appoint different people in committee, but under the legislature, we operate under Mason's rules. Here we operate under Roberts. Does Roberts allow for substitution? And maybe the parliamentarian could answer that question.
Jump in for.
Representative Horgan.
Yes. For the Robert rules, I have to confess, and maybe I shouldn't say this, it wasn't until last year that that had been said that we're supposed to under Robert Rules of Order. So I've been assuming that the Masons manual applied, which I'm familiar with, and that. So having the informational meeting and taking the straw vote is, in my opinion, allowable when they're Masons. And also, I think both of those, certainly the York County Fire Department's edition of Robert Rules were in the PDF file. That's not controlling on us in any way. The York County Fire Department, webmaster has no authority over how the Stratford County New
Well,
Hampshire delegation does.
I don't wanna get into
Yeah.
this kind of a discussion. We have a parliamentarian,
Either
point
way.
of order has been made, and we do operate under Roberts. Your assumption was incorrect.
Sorry.
The legislature operates under Mason's rules. So, Mr. Parliamentarian, Mr. Vice Chairman, could you please assist us?
Well, what's the exact question? Substitution on a committee?
Yeah.
Look, committees, usually, in Robert's Rules of Order, committees are established in the bylaws. Whether it's a special committee or a standing committee. Also, the chair of the body is an ex officio member of every single committee. So the chair could always show up to help make a quorum. And secondly, you say these are subcommittees. We'd have to look at whatever establishes the subcommittee. Is there a law that establishes these subcommittees?
No.
And it should be spelled out in that document on the makeup and on the ability to substitute. Generally speaking, in most bylaws, the chair appoints standing committees and special committees. So in that authorization, establishing committees, that would address whether you can substitute or not. So it's not really a direct answer because that's not how Roberts would answer. It would be, I'm sorry, but I actually wrote an article for Parliamentarian publication once, and the name of the article was "It Depends." So we'd have to look at the establishing document of
Which the chair did for the subcommittee.
of the subcommittees. And if the chair just threw out, you're in there, then the chair
Could change it.
would have the authority to pull people in and out because it's the chair's authority.
And I would be okay with that.
The problem is I had to be in Concord, so I could not attend that particular meeting since I'm not capable any more than anyone else is of being in two different places at the same time. So I was not there, but I attended the other subcommittee meetings. In any case, the bottom line is that the meeting as held was not a legal meeting and therefore it could not act. And at this point, we have to decide as an executive committee whether we're going to proceed on this day with regard to this particular subcommittee's purview, or whether we are going to set it off to another time. And I had a previous discussion with Mr. Bauer relating to your objections and your communication with me, Representative Newton. And I indicated that I was going to try to proceed today with our business. And that I would ask the county employees who are part of the services that are provided that's under review by the General Government Subcommittee. He's aware, and so I think we can do some of the work today and not just 15 minutes. And where you said gloss, your words were to gloss over it in 15 minutes or so.
I said it facetiously, because it deserves more than 15 minutes.
You use the word glossing over, and I'm saying my intention would be to do an amount of work in review that would do justice to the substance of the subcommittee's purview and not to gloss it over. So at this point, I'm going to ask the executive committee to assist and make a motion, whether we want to proceed or whether we want to call for a second meeting of the subcommittee. So I'll recognize at this point our Representative Southwood.
Thank you. Just for clarification, I do understand, all of your points. I think what I was thinking about not having to have everyone come, anyone can read the report from Meals on Wheels. And they could have even just submitted a written report anyway. So that's really what I'm saying, you know, is that a lot of these things are, you know, expressed in detail by the people in the agencies. That's not going to change. And they could have come in writing anyway. So I'm just saying, really, I don't feel like we have to redo those things, because Meals on Wheels is gonna have the same description and report. And then I think other people can help with any questions, just to simplify it.
Representative Bixby.
Yeah. I have a question for Commissioner Bauer. Do you feel sufficiently well versed in the information that was presented by the agencies to present that yourself?
Well, I mean, I do, but if anybody asks questions, I won't be able to answer. Second of all, and I just need to say this, in fairness, Mr. Chairman, when you and I spoke, my suggestion was to allow the executive committee to decide whether to proceed or to have a subsequent meeting.
That's the purpose of this discussion.
I understand, I just don't wanna make it seem like I was suggesting, you know, any course of action other than to let the executive committee decide about how they wanted to proceed.
I hope everyone understands this exactly what we're doing now, and that's exactly my proposal, is to have the executive committee decide. I made a proposal on proceeding based on the information that we could derive from the county staff that is here or available, readily available, as opposed to bringing these agencies in. They provided their underlying information in writing, so we have that available. The question is how the executive committee wants to proceed at this particular point. I made a proposal, but I'm not the dictator. No, I'm only the convener. Representative Bixby, followed by Representative.
I have a question for Representative Fitzpatrick, who knows more about this than I do, certainly. Is it within the executive committee's purview or powers to essentially take over the role of what the subcommittee did and do that hearing here? Or would, under Robert's Rules of Order, that subcommittee need to be redone?
I don't think Roberts would even deal with this. This would be statute, this would be statutory law, which would come under the purview of the county attorney. You know, again, because I have to know what is the legal standing of all of these committees. If the chair appoints a subcommittee, the only authority in my head comes right from the chair.
So
you know what I'm saying?
Theoretically, the chair right now could appoint all of us as a new subcommittee for general government, so we could have the hearing right here and now.
Well, again, that would be up to the county attorney. Again, how are our committees structured legally?
I have the authority as chair to appoint the subcommittees. It has been my practice the entire time I've been the chair that I would appoint all the members to the subcommittees that they requested, if at all possible. And we've had a relatively miraculous occurrence the entire time that people select the subcommittee assignment in a voluntary way that makes it very easy. I just say, you want to be on such and such a subcommittee, we have a form that we fill out, and it's like the parting of the Red Sea in a way. Everybody picks a subcommittee, and at the end we have an allocation of the various different subcommittees, where I'm not having to say, I'm sorry, all of you can't be all on the committee X. It divides very, very naturally, and so I'm just assigning people to the subcommittee they want to be on. So,
Mr. Chairman, I call the caucus, a 5-minute caucus.
You're entitled to do so, and I will give you 10 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You want me to pause the recording?
And Robert will say that.
So, what we're gonna do at the moment is we are going to recess this particular item to the end of the meeting. So that we can get rid of the stuff and act on the stuff that is on the agenda, that are part of what we have to do this morning. And then we will take up the matter of the general government subcommittee at the end of the meeting. Okay, so let me get to the agenda here. Item 10 is the report of the Policies and Procedures Subcommittee with regard to the remainder of the Stratford County Sheriff's term. So as some of you know, and as the public may be aware, if they're paying any attention, the Stratford County, former Stratford County High Sheriff has resigned. And we've been being served for the past several months by acting Sheriff McGivern. And we have conducted a search for an additional for someone to serve, because under the statute, we the delegation have to act to elect a new sheriff for the remainder of the term. That's what the statute says, because the resignation occurred prior to the half the term being over. So we had an ad in the paper, and we had an application process, and our only applicant was Joseph McGivern, who was our current acting sheriff. The Policies and Procedures Subcommittee met, and interviewed him, and determined that they wish to endorse him for election by the delegation. So that is my report to the executive committee, that he has applied. He's provided his resume. He's been interviewed. And there was a unanimous vote of the Policy and Procedure Subcommittee to recommend him to the executive committee for further recommendation to the delegation to be elected at the time of our upcoming budget meeting. So, other questions or comments? Representative Petrie.
Yeah, I make that motion.
You're making which motion?
Motion to
Endorse him?
keep him until the elected official gets in place.
Right, well, we obviously have an election coming up on November 4th or 5th. And at that time, we will have an election. As most of you possibly know, the public may not be aware, but Mr. McGivern will turn 70 on October 24th, I believe. Right? Right, yes, that's correct. Right, October 24th, at which time he will no longer be sheriff, no matter what. Under the statute, he's out at that particular time. So that would be like 2 weeks short of the election, at which time someone will be elected to take his place. I hope we will be able to swear him in immediately. So, but I believe that Mr. McGivern is also available to continue to serve the sheriff's department, but just not to be the sheriff. So Representative Bixby, you're recognized.
I would like to second the motion to have Mr. McGivern be elected to, or that we recommend Mr. McGivern to the full delegation to be elected as to fill out the balance of the term.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to recommend Mr. McGivern for the delegation's consideration at the time of our next meeting. Is there further discussion? Again, I ask again, is there further discussion on the part of the executive committee? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so Representative, do you wish to have your no vote recorded, Representative Bailey? Certainly, okay, so with one no vote, Joseph McGivern is recommended to the full delegation for election at the time of our next meeting. Yeah, thank you very much. Want to say something?
Just thanking everybody for their support. Everything continues to go well at the sheriff's office. We're working diligently to fix everything. And if I was just stepping in now, I could tell you what we're gonna be doing, but we've been doing it for the past 6 months. Commission was smart enough to move quickly to appoint someone, which was me as the CEO at the time. So we hit the ground running to fix things as we went along. Can't say enough about Major Steve Burke and other staff members. It was a team effort and it continues to be. But I know you've said in the past, you take the responsibility for the good or the bad, but it's definitely been a team effort and we continue to work diligently to get our reputation back, do things properly like they should be. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I think you saw by the fact that you got a standing ovation that we're very much in approval of what you have done, and we're very appreciative of Major Burke's actions to assist you, and as they say on Star Trek, to make it so. And we will see you. We will see you at the time of the delegation meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's item 10. Item 11 is the elected official salaries. As we all know, the statute calls for the elected officials of Stratford County, indeed of all of the counties, to be informed of the salaries that their successors, whether it be themselves or anyone else, their successors will have the following salaries. And the Policy and Procedures Subcommittee has met and deliberated, and we are mindful of the fact that we are experiencing at the moment what's called compression, that we have somewhat we have rising salaries of the employees. We have fixed salaries of the elected officials, and that there's what's called compression, that rising salaries get people, salaried employees, unelected salaried employees, getting close to, or in some cases exceeding the salaries of the elected officials. But in any case, we had a process, and I think we should hear from somebody besides myself at the moment with regard to what we've come up with, and we have some numbers that we have worked out, and I'm asking, do we have those numbers available? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Commissioner Chairman.
Just so the members of the executive committee that work.
Can you use the microphone, George? Take it easy on that knee.
I know. What you have in front of you is the result of the subcommittee's meeting this morning, just to let you know. The subcommittee met this morning, asked the commission for an adjustment that was that had multiple facets to it. And that the result of what they've asked for is in this document. As the chairman has indicated, and the subcommittee is well aware, there's been severe compression taking place over the last several years with the elected officials, following in some instances, there were 7 and 8 individuals in their department that were making more than the elected official that was running the department. Now, there's been a long history of the rest of the reasons why that has occurred. But it was the subcommittee's intention to correct that. The motion was made, I believe by Mr. Fitzpatrick, to come up with this formula. I worked on it. I left the committee immediately and worked on it with Ray in terms of numbers of what you asked for. And that's what you have in front of you. And Joe was there as well. This is the net result of what you had asked for. So I think you all should know that.
Yes. Yes, Commissioner, thank you for taking my question. I don't believe it is, but is the attrition rate pretty low at the county? As far as turnovers?
We have well, it depends on which department you're talking. In terms of turnovers of health, you're speaking of specifically? You're talking about staffing? Yeah, well, you all recognize that we've lost county attorneys, at a tremendous rate, the deputy assistant county attorneys. We've had certainly staffing issues at the nursing home, which has been plaguing us for quite some time. Basically, we're losing people because we just haven't been paying them enough. We lost Tom Ballard as a classic example because of his pay. He went to the Attorney General's office for a $40,000 increase in pay. And all of our deputy county attorneys, the assistant county attorneys have left. So we've been trying to address that. The subcommittees addressed it. And it was the Policies and Procedures Committee's discussion. I don't want to put words in their mouths because a lot of them are right here. And it'd probably be better for Joe or for Dan to speak to those issues.
I would want to give it a mic. Yeah. All right.
Well, let's clean it up before it gets worse.
Yeah.
It's funny to get paid for telephone.
Sorry about that. You didn't do anything. I actually did it.
I didn't want you to. Doesn't go over the edge.
George.
One of the many advantages of not being a coffee.
This is only elected. Yeah, so why are we asking about?
Always.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, it's just.
This is based on.
So.
Okay.
And do each slide, some coffee in that bowl.
So what we were focusing on all of the elected officials, and we did recommend a 10% increase for the top. If you go from the top, from the commissioners down to the register of deeds. However, there was a real issue with the attorney's office and the sheriff's department, where the direct reports to both the county attorney and the sheriff were making a considerable more money than the sheriff and the county attorney. And we wanted to rectify that over a 24-month period, because it's a substantial bump. But you can see that's why on the right-hand side, it's got the years 2025 and 2026. We're going to cut that in half. And we are recommending we raise the county attorney up to 131 for 2025, and then 156 for 2026. It's a substantial bump, but again, if we want to encourage people to run for these offices, we have to offer a financial incentive that first of all matches the market, and secondly, again, where they are not making less money than their direct reports. Joe, you want to throw in on anything on that, or?
Well, I just want to point out that the county attorney, the deputy county attorney is making $137,000 and change, and the actual county attorney makes $114,000. So that's quite an inversion. So we're trying to fix that with the 131,000 that you see in the worksheet.
I don't, what is it?
You don't, you may not be looking at the right thing, you're looking at the.
This is it.
Yeah, this is.
And what you don't have are the subordinate
Look on the right
salaries,
side.
which we saw.
Yeah,
This morning, we were able to see all the subordinate salaries, and you can see that it was just a glaring problem.
And actually, we tried to fix that in criminal justice also. There's 32,000 that was given to that subcommittee to distribute by the county attorney to help recruit new
And retain.
retirees
And retain.
and retain.
Right. Recognizing that these salaries are for the coming term for the elected officials, coming term, because they may all or none of them run again or be elected and so forth. But people running have to know what they're going to be paid, and the statute calls for that, requires that. So anyway, represent potential.
So I guess I'm a little confused because when I look at this chart here and, you know, mind you, this is the first time I'm seeing it. It's not showing that we are significantly behind. And if you,
We are. I just gave you we had another sheet of the county attorney. And that inversion that I showed you, and it goes right down the line, and they're losing help to say the state attorney general's office is a big
but I mean, I'm
And
just
other
saying though, I understand that. I know we're always gonna lose that. They're gonna pay more, but I'm just comparing it with the other counties here. And it doesn't show that we are way far behind. I mean, Rockingham County is humongous and they are 115 and we are 106. So Merrimack County is 103 and we're 106. So I don't see.
It's the comparison with the staff members that serve in the attorney's office and the sheriff's office, not the comparison with the other counties that Joe was talking about.
Yeah, because we're paying the assistant county attorney $137,800. And we had to do that because he was an experienced prosecutor. And to attract good help, you need to pay up.
Yeah, that's not in that sheet.
Right,
Well,
not in that sheet.
That's why you have subcommittees. We bring the information. We were there.
Right. Representative Orkin and Representative Petrie were on the subcommittee.
Was unanimous.
It was a unanimous recommendation of the Policies and Procedures Subcommittee to make these raises because the compression thing is you get, we brought in some years ago this extremely experienced individual because you cannot send brand new attorneys into a situation in a trial situation where a person's liberty could be at stake and so forth, or justice must be served, to have somebody who's trying their first case. So we brought in this very experienced former prosecutor in a different agency to assist us. But that did mean that we were paying the county attorney less than that individual, Representative Oregon.
Thanks. Mike, what position did the newly recently, I guess we actually elected her county attorney hold before she was before we promoted her to the job of county attorney? Was she a senior county attorney or was she the deputy?
Let's ask her.
I was the deputy, so.
You gonna?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
So I was the deputy county attorney. Jock Barth was brought in. That's who we're talking about with that high salary. Barth was brought in after I became the deputy. He has a lot more experience than I did, as deputy county attorney. So I think that was, County Attorney Velarde's reasoning for paying him what he was being paid. When I became the county attorney, gave him that title of deputy county attorney, didn't give him any increase in pay. Because it was the middle of the budget, of course, but, yeah, I think does that answer your question?
Oh,
He essentially has my old job, but he, like I said, much more experienced than I was. He's got 30
That's why we hired him.
30 years. So.
Right. You good?
Yeah. No, I don't get it, but that's fine. I don't understand. I just don't understand. So in 2025, we're gonna pay county attorney $131,000. And then in 2026, we're gonna pay $156,000, correct? That's what this is saying?
That's a proposal.
Okay. Okay, I understand we have to have it balanced out. I get it. And, it seems as if it's, almost in some cases, $50,000 more than other counties. And that's all I'm really looking at it. I know I'm not on that subcommittee, but it's a lot of money and that's all. I get it.
Representative Burnham.
Thank you. So this is an elected position and we can't guarantee, in the upcoming elections of the experience of a county attorney, but yet we're going to throw more money at this position for perhaps somebody who's not as experienced. I have a problem with that. We were dealing with that in our own town. We have people that are retiring after 27 years and have had an increase substantially. And now we're going to get someone new that's not with the same accreditations. We've decided to reduce that salary line for the mere purpose. We don't know who's going to be in that position. This kind of jump, I cannot support, unfortunately, because we just don't know with elected positions what we're going to get in the future. We saw that also with the sheriff. And look what happened. We need to be very careful with taxpaying money when it comes to elected positions and those who are entering with whatever experience or lack of experience they may have. Thank you.
Representative South.
Thank you. Having been a school administrator and seen this in many districts, we also found over time with superintendents and principals, we had to make significant increases to get the kind of person we wanted and to get someone who would stay with us. And I would just say there were a variety of people on this subcommittee. I know them well, most of them, and they got a lot more information than we did. And I just don't believe they would propose this unless they really felt it was necessary. And I don't know if they want to say a little more, but really, you really can't, just like you couldn't have a teacher earning more than a principal, you really can't have an assistant earning more than the leader of the group. And when you make the jump, it is painful, it's kind of shocking to see it in writing, but also if you stay on top of it, it does even out over time. So I just think that's where we're at as far as hiring some of these people right now. And again, I would defer if they want to say more to the committee, but from my background, I understand why this had to happen. Thank you.
Representative Bixby.
Yeah, so we had the occurrence earlier in this term that Attorney Velarde was essentially lured away from the county by a substantial pay increase by going to the Attorney General's office. If our current county attorney was lured away to a different job, then the deputy attorney at this point would have to take a substantial pay cut in order to fill in her position. And I think that's problematic.
Anyone else? Representative, sorry,
Just one quick comment.
please.
Joe McGivern, you are gonna recommend to be sheriff? Just taking a cut in pay. Become sheriff. Just to let you know. But Peter just said is extremely accurate. Once the compression that's taken place just didn't happen overnight.
You have to talk
Yeah,
into the mic.
this didn't, just the compression that we have here just didn't happen overnight. There were many years where no raises were given to the elected officials. Multiple years where no raises were given to the elected officials. Over time, that compression has caught up to us. Now, I can remember when Leo Lasai was Register of Deeds, he never wanted a pay increase for multiple reasons. One, he didn't want anybody to run against him. And that's the facts, okay?
That's the truth.
That's the truth. He did not want anybody to run against him, so he says, do not give me a raise, do not give me a raise, do not give me a raise. Well, every time he did that, of course, was it the right thing to do? Probably not. Matter of fact, I knew it wasn't the right thing, and I used to argue about it all the time. I think you're doing it's the position, not you, Leo.
Right.
But he insisted, kept insisting, no raise, no raise, no raise. I says, well, take the raise so that we don't have this problem in the future.
Right.
Well,
We're not gonna get anybody to run for Register of Deeds when you,
Right.
Leo Lassard, are no longer the register, which came to pass.
It came to
Even before
pass.
he died, you know,
Right.
he
It came to
he
pass.
became a commissioner. We finally gave the position a raise
right,
because
Right.
we realized we were not gonna get anybody
but
to
we're
run
still,
for register at
and
peanuts that
we're
we were
still,
paying Leo,
and we're still behind.
which is what he wanted.
Right, which is what he wanted, but we're still behind on that. And and what Peter just said is absolutely accurate, especially with the county attorneys. That is absolutely correct. We lost Tom Bellardi. Tom Bellardi got a 40,000. Give me up. Two things about the county attorney's office you need to understand. Bellardi left for a $40,000 increase in pay. Everything you're saying is absolutely accurate. Right, it's spot on. Now, the other thing you have to recognize is what we do in Stratford County versus other counties. The other counties don't do what Stratford County does. We run drug courts, mental health courts. We do things that other counties are just starting to do now. And the other counties have yet to set what their elected official salaries are gonna be. A lot of them operate on a fiscal year. They're going through the budgetary process. They're gonna do it by June. They haven't made those decisions yet as to what they're gonna be paying. And our historically, what we have done is we've given the elected official salaries, what the employees had gotten the prior 2 years. So you're really, when you take situations like Leo, you're trying to make up 6, 8, and 10 years worth of salary compression. And so the subcommittee, Joe and Jim Horgan, thought that we should be doing something about that. And so did Dan and others in the subcommittees. We can't go this way. We've had a couple of people that are in the sheriff's department that are interested in running for sheriff. But those that have experience will have to take a cut in pay. So now they're saying, well, I don't think I would do it, take a cut in pay in order to run. So those are the kinds of dynamics you're working on. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, if there are further questions, we'll attempt to answer them. If not, I'm looking for a motion. Representative Petrie,
I make that motion to adopt the
recommendations of the Policy and Procedures Subcommittee is represented in the document that you're holding.
yes.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved in
I
second.
just have a question.
Representative Newton, you
Yeah,
recommend.
I'm just still a little confused. Are we gonna vote on the numbers that are in color or the numbers to the right of them?
It's
2-year proposal.
Which says estimates to increase 5% above higher employee. Is that what we're voting on? Or are we voting on the total amount of 10% salary increase?
10% say.
So we're not doing the other numbers at this time?
Yeah, we are.
No,
It's the total, it's in total, what the worksheet says.
it's two.
Yeah, I can.
It's 2 years at 10%, so it's 5% a year. We
Yeah.
thought it was too much to increase everything in the first year.
So that was just showing, but this says 25, 26. Are we doing these numbers or these numbers?
Both.
We're doing both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take it back to.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
What is the second, what's the deputy? I guess I'm not sure what the
Yeah.
title is. What's the
Deputy.
second deputy county attorney?
137, 137.8
Right now.
right now.
So even the 130-31 is still under that.
So you take the 130, the 114
But can I,
that the current county attorney makes, and you add the 40,000, it comes up to 154. All right, so basically that's what you're gonna be paying your new, the new rate, whoever gets elected to that position. 156, a couple thousand
So
more
that's gonna be in 24 months,
in 24 months.
because we wanted to phase it in.
24,
We saw it was a
25,
big
26.
hit. So we said,
That
well,
won't be till 26.
we'll do half of it in 2025, the bump up, and the other half in 2026. That's what the right-hand column is. So the proposal out of the subcommittee was its entire sheet.
follow up?
Yes.
Wasn't it irresponsible for us to pay that person that was second in command that kind of money to begin with?
Not
Like,
if we
what is-
wanted to hire him.
You know, you can hire, you know, you can, of course, we got elected position like the county attorney.
He's not elected though.
Or the, well, no, yeah, but it has the effect. Because you need to hire people that are gonna do the job.
I get it.
We hired a sheriff, they couldn't do the job. And we don't know where that's going yet, but we got a good idea. How much is that costing us extra to hire somebody that really didn't do the job correctly?
I understand that, but we're talking about someone that was hired, that we pigeonholed ourselves for an elected official, which I think you're fantastic. I read all your resume and all of that. This has nothing to do with that. This is an elected position. And if she doesn't get elected, then we could have someone that is not qualified. I agree with what Representative Burnham is saying here, that there's no guarantee in an elected position. You are talking about a hire that we knew for fact had these criteria. That's the difference. I think we pigeonholed ourselves with paying someone so high that we wanted, and then it's unfair for the person that's in the elected position. I don't know, I can't support this.
If I've ever recognized.
You're recognized.
Right, yeah. Attorney Velarde had always kind of suppressed his salary, if you back that up.
Correct.
And so he didn't really, he said, I'm happy with what, don't worry about me. And he said that several times. So.
You know, they regret it.
I mean, he knew, but the opportunity came, $40,000 extra, hey, he's gone. So you lost all that experience. You can pay, or you can pay now or pay later, but you will pay.
Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One part of this discussion that I don't think that we've really touched on is what the private market rate is for some of these higher level attorneys. And if these attorneys are making more on the private market, why would they run for an elected office that is clearly less than what they'd be able to make? I think that the increase in what the committee members have discussed, maybe they could go a little bit further in depth about that. Thank you.
I can try that.
Sure, go ahead.
What we tried to do years ago, and we continue to try to do, is to make sure that our prosecuting attorneys are at least on level with the public defender's office. Now, Sununu increased their pay by 16%. Okay, and we started to miss the market that you're talking about. We always used to use that as some kind of a target. But more importantly, our assistant county attorneys are carrying on the average of about 125 cases apiece. And that included Velarde. Now, I can assure you that Velarde's caseload has dropped considerably when he went to his new job, okay? They're all carrying 125 cases. Now, we're lucky in that regard, but the problem with it is that because we had such inexperienced prosecutors and they were carrying such a heavy caseload, we were losing a lot of cases that the local police PDs were complaining about, and we should have won these cases, and we went through all this, shucking and jiving because we weren't paying enough experienced prosecutors. We just weren't paying. So when we brought Jock Barth on with 30 years of experience, he took a cut in pay as well when he took the job with us. Like simply because he wanted to leave, he was a federal prosecutor, he wanted to come back and not do the federal prosecuting stuff as much as his love was more superior court driven. However, we needed him to train the other prosecutors. We asked him to train the other prosecutors, to give them guidance, because Tom couldn't do it all on his own. And that was the reason why he was brought in at the rate he was brought in. No, it wasn't, no, he's been with us now 3 years, I think it's 3 years now, right?
About right, yeah.
You're about right. He's been with us about 3 years. And of course, his position has received the increases that, the 4% or the 5% that we've been giving since he came in, just to let you know. Okay, so he was treated the same as everybody else. But let me just say this. If it wasn't for our early case resolution program, though we're one of the few counties that run an early case resolution program, the county commissioners and the county attorney would be in here asking me to hire 2 or 3 more attorneys. Because without our early case resolution program, where we try to get rid of cases through the system and not have to bog the system down, that has saved this county hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of time that we put in place. But that takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of negotiation with the defense counsel and with the public defender's office. So there's a lot of things that we've done in our county attorney's office that's separate from other operations, okay, other county attorney operations. Some county attorney operations, most of them hate early case resolution. The bar hates it because they can't make any money. Okay, the Bar Association hates it. But it's in our interest to operate that early case resolution program. That's just one example of many that I can give you. So all the committee was trying to do, Velarde did himself no favors, which is proven out, just like Lassard saying, no, don't give me nothing, don't give me nothing, don't give me nothing. Well, eventually when you do that, it catches up to you. And that's where we're at. We're at the point of trying to catch up. The question is, how much do you want to catch up? That's what it boils down to. And to what extent?
Representative Petrie, followed by Representative Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I'd like to point out, for a regular 40-hour week, which I'm sure you work more than 40 hours, a good attorney, matter of fact, I learned this in court some time ago, was about $250 an hour. With this rate, it's $74 an hour for her services. That's pretty cheap for a lawyer, especially the responsibility she has.
So that's the new rate.
That's the new rate.
The proposed rate.
The proposed rate is $74 an hour.
Okay, so, right, so the real
Plus
current,
benefits.
so the real current rate is substantially lower than that.
Correct.
Okay.
It's probably 1/3 because it's about 100.
The problem I have with this is we're all saying, if we don't pay more, we won't get good candidates. Well, geez, how did we get 400 people in the legislature for $6 an hour? This is an elected
It's in the
position.
Constitution, Representative Newman.
Yeah, well, people sign up to run too, so there's no shortage usually of getting people, but the point I'm making, unfortunately, this is an elected position. The commissioners don't get paid for the time they are involved, they're here like maybe 2 or 3 days a week. And they're not getting paid for what they're doing, and I honestly, I can't tell my constituents, if you look at just the sheer numbers and put it in numbers anybody can understand, that for the county attorney by 26, we're gonna be giving them almost 50% more than what they got in 2024. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I can't support it. The other ones are less, so it's a little more palatable, but to give that much of an increase, I would have a hard time explaining it to my constituents. So I won't be voting for that because of that, the county attorney increase being so huge.
Representative Bixby.
Yeah, so, what I'm hearing, from, the commissioner and from, Representative Petrie, is that if we don't, well, prior to, the current deputy having been brought on, we had a problem where, our police departments would arrest people, bring them in for indictment and prosecution. And because we did not have enough competent people in the county attorney's office, we would be losing cases and those people would be going back on the street. So I think that failing to pass this increase is essentially a pro-crime act.
Representative, I representative or.
This is all due respect to the elected seat. Can anyone run for county attorney?
No,
You have to have certain
you have
requirements.
to be part of the bar.
You have to be part of the bar.
Oh, yeah.
Does that go the same with the other elected positions here?
No,
With other requirements, or is it just for the attorney
You have to
general?
be a certified officer to be sheriff.
Officer of the court.
Thank you.
You have to be part of the bar, and that actually happened up in Coos County. And the Secretary of State had taken, he was on the ballot and probably would have won, but he wasn't certified, so they had to kick him off.
Meaning certified from the New Hampshire bar?
New Hampshire bar. I'm not sure, it could be a bar from another state, I don't know exactly how that reads, but I know you have to be part of a bar.
Representative Morgan.
Yes, all these county attorneys, jobs you talk about, they're all probably making less than they can make in the private sector, even Velarde, but there's also we also have to compete with other branches of government. For example, Belknap County's county attorney recently was appointed a judge, for example, so we want to hold on to our county attorneys. We can't necessarily pay them the same year after year. And also, another thing is even an attorney is in the bar, he may not be able to do the job, which I think they had a problem with Merrimack County a few years ago, where the Attorney General's office basically had to take over most of his duties as a county attorney, so which we don't want to do that. And one of the keys, in addition to choosing the new county attorney carefully at election time, is also to have a pay rate that's at least somewhat commensurate with similar jobs in government.
Being no further, questions, clerk will follow.
Nay.
Bixby,
Yes.
Burnham,
No.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Oregon,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Newton,
No.
Petrie,
Yes.
Tenza,
No.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Southworth,
Yeah,
7-1.
The motion passes 7-. Okay. Okay, so we'll defer item 12 because we have not finished with item 7. Item 13 is motion to accept the minutes of November 15th, 2020 Executive Committee meeting. So moved. Representative Petrie moved. Sorry. Did I miss here?
Yes, Representative Petrie moved.
He's behind the pillar for me.
Oh, yes, so he made the motion, and now we need a second.
That's purposeful.
Who's second? Representative Howard seconds. So is there any question or are there changes, deletions? That need to be made to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 14, any other business which may legally come before the executive committee? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, now we can proceed back to item 7.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Is your motion?
I move to instruct the chair to have a subcommittee. I move to instruct the chair to have a subcommittee meet between now and March 20th. And give their report to the entire delegation. Or if they can't meet the entire delegation, hold a general government committee meeting.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Representative Newton, seconded by Representative Petrie. Is there further discussion? Representative Bixby.
I would just like to get some clarity on whether, in order to make sure that we have a quorum at that the chair would be able to assign new members to the general government subcommittee in order to, meet the quorum requirements.
Your motion is.
That's not a motion, that's a question.
Point of order.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
My point of order, would just be, I think the planning would be between the chairs of the two committees. So I would say that. I'd also say, no one really goes for revenue, so I have a small committee. I have 5, so a quorum is 3. And depending, there's no reason you couldn't make the committee 5. And it doesn't have to be 10, it was just because people volunteered, but it's between the two of you, but I just throw out that idea. That might be, simpler.
And Mr. Chairman,
Representative Petrie proceeded. Representative Petrie.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Another thing that these committees are supposed to be proportional, just like this committee is proportional. And that's Republican, Democrat.
Right.
And our committee was not, it was 28%, which is, we make up 33%.
Well, I apologize for the fact that I couldn't read the minds of all the people who signed up for, remember, these are the committees of the delegates signed up for, requested. I gave them the committees and the assignments they wanted. So, we have, it's your experience, you've been on the delegation, I see you represent. You've been on the delegation now for 15 years?
14.
14, well, my memory is not.
I know.
So I said 14 years, about 15. So anyway, the point is that we have essentially a very bipartisan approach to our subcommittees. And they are only recommendations on that, and so I just can be faulted for allowing a system that works to go forward. But and I will not stack the subcommittee if that's what you're warning against. Representative,
I have a question for the county attorney. Is there in fact anything in statute that requires proportionality on the subcommittees?
So we had talked about the subcommittees for this purpose, for the delegation budget. There is no statutory, I guess, structure that calls for subcommittees. So when you don't have a statute and you don't have a bylaw or a rule, as Robert's Rule of Order says, it goes by practice. And what the practice has been, this delegation is to have the chair appoint subcommittees in the fashion that he has been doing so the last however many years. So if the chair wants to amend the subcommittees, I think that he can do so. But the practice has been to do a proportionate. So I would say to continue on with that practice if you're going to amend the subcommittee for the this particular subcommittee. But there is no statute that calls for subcommittees. I think I was talking to the Commissioner McLaris about how these subcommittees originated, and it was something that Leo Lassard had started years ago, that other counties don't even do subcommittees when they're coming to their budget. It's just a way to save time for the full delegation, that we have subcommittees for each respective discipline that presents to the executive committee. So I hope that clarifies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Representative Newton.
yeah, a question for the attorney. So if the subcommittee for general government has been 10 people, if you want to keep precedent, should it still remain 10 people?
And I don't think it needs to remain 10 people, but if your practice has been all along to keep it proportionate, I think that that's a fair practice to keep. I don't think the number necessarily matters. There's nothing that dictates what a number has to be.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask one thing from a totally logistical purpose, Representative Newton? Is there the expectation that the executive committee will hear the recommendation of the general government committee prior to the delegation
No,
meeting?
that's not the motion.
I understand that. I'm just trying to know so I know how to advertise the meeting. I just don't want to advertise the meeting the wrong way. So I didn't know what your
The
expectation.
motion was to have a meeting between now and March 20th and give the report to the entire delegation.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
And I can, if you need this, because we usually like to get stuff kind of in writing, but
It was pretty clear.
if this was okay, we're leaving it up to the chairman to correct the mess and bring some kind of report to the full delegation, and that way I think we'll just feel like we've done our best to do a good job to the delegation.
Then we don't have to change the meeting notice at all.
No.
Thank you. Sorry for.
No, that's
I'm
fine. It's
sorry if I
better to
missed-
clarify it now than wonder.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'd
Yeah.
rather clarify it now than come to the
for
delegation
that.
meeting
Thank
and
you.
find out that I've done something wrong.
Thank you.
Further, Representative Dixon.
So, in terms of what this would mean for going forward for, the rest of what we have to cover today, would we then move to adopt all of the budget except the general government budget and then?
That's what we work out to do.
We have a motion
We
on
have
the
to do
floor.
the motion.
Well, we have to vote on the motion,
Yes.
but that's how it would play out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's do it.
so anything further? Okay, so I think we should have a roll call.
Bailey,
Aye.
Bixby,
Yes.
Burnham,
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Oregon.
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Penza,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Southworth,
Yes.
unanimous, 11.
So item 12, motion to vote to approve recommendations for the full delegation meeting Wednesday, March 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Peter Duff made it.
So.
He had made it, but say it again.
Yeah, so, I move to, adopt all parts of the budget, or recommend the adoption of all parts of the budget other than the general government subcommittees, element part of it, which will then get a recommendation, a separate recommendation before the delegation.
Seconded.
Seconded by Representative Newton. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so I believe that's everything.
Wow.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second by everybody, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for a interesting